The Galactic Council had long believed in the permanence of peace. Built over 10,000 cycles of expansion and regulation, their rule stretched across 1,000 systems and just as many species. Surveillance networks, autonomous scouts, and deep space monitors ensured that no sentient race could rise without notice or control. When Earth was first cataloged 3 centuries ago, it was dismissed, a backwater, pre-FTL civilization lost in a spiral arm. The probe transmitted images of primitive cities, chemical propulsion, and a fractured political structure. Earth was sealed with a Class D designation. No threat, no interest, no follow-up. That was their first mistake. As cycles passed, the Council grew complacent. Most civilizations discovered FTL through Council intervention or under their careful watch. Species that resisted were quickly brought to heel, if not through war, then through trade, ideology, or strategic collapse. They called it harmonization, but in truth, it was submission, and the Council believed this method was flawless. Then the disappearances began. First, a cargo convoy in Sector D. 94 vanished en route to the mineral moons of Javos Prime. No distress call, no wreckage. A month later, a science vessel in the Orion Veil ceased communication mid-scan. More ships followed. Different species, different regions. No survivors. Counselors dismissed them as anomalies. Piracy, spatial anomalies, rogue AI clusters. Nothing coordinated, nothing threatening, until the Thalzar scout ship returned. Its outer hull was scorched, its data core fractured, its crew in mental collapse. What little could be extracted from the mind logs was fragmented. Silent black voids, energy surges beyond known thresholds, cold precision in the attacks. And one phrase repeated in terrified whispers. They were human. The Council froze. Impossible. Earth had been locked under non-engagement protocol. No probes had returned in centuries. And there were no known transmissions, no spacefaring signals from the Sol system. Humanity had vanished from their maps. They had to still be primitive if they existed at all. Still, caution dictated a response. Recon ships were sent to Earth's last known position. They found nothing. No cities, no oceans, no planet. The Sol system was a graveyard of scorched rock and radiation fields. It had been stripped intentionally. Council analysts debated whether the humans had destroyed themselves or been harvested by another power. But that didn't explain the attacks. It didn't explain the word human being spoken by terrified Thalzar. So they searched deeper. System after system was analyzed, scanned, and charted. No trace, no origin, no fleet trails. The Council issued a black directive. If any ship encountered human signatures, they were to retreat and report. The tone had shifted. The galaxy, once theirs to monitor and control, was now uncertain. Fear crept through the chambers of power. They had assumed Earth was alone. They had assumed Earth was insignificant. They had assumed wrong. And then, without warning, sensors in the outermost ring of known space recorded gravitational spikes. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Something massive was moving through the dark, unseen by standard detection, but triggering effects no known vessel could produce. The Council finally understood something had arrived. Something ancient. Something prepared. And it had come from the shadows they never thought to watch. 300 years ago, humanity discovered it was not alone. Not through first contact, not through friendly exchange, but by accident. An alien probe, cloaked but damaged, crash-landed in Siberia. It was small, almost missed by global scans, but what it carried changed everything. Technology centuries ahead. Star maps. A list of surveyed planets, including Earth, marked with a simple code. Class D, no threat. That designation ignited fear. Not because of the label, but because someone out there was labeling them at all. Earth did not panic publicly. Governments, after decades of division, quietly unified under a single directive: disappear. They shut down visible technological signals. Global data traffic was rerouted through quantum entanglement. Satellites were deorbited and replaced with stealth equivalents. Human progress went dark. What the galaxy saw from then on was regression. Wars, collapse, stagnation. What actually happened was the opposite. With the probe reverse-engineered, Earth gained access to concepts like field propulsion, graviton compression, and interstellar navigation. It took 2 decades to replicate even a fraction of it. By then, a secret orbital ring was built inside the moon's shadow, hidden from external scans. There, humanity began designing vessels for a war that hadn't yet come, but was inevitable. The realization was clear. Any civilization capable of watching without announcing itself was not friendly. Earth's history had taught it well. Empires don't observe, they dominate. Humanity resolved not to be next. Colonization began in dead systems, regions with no natural energy signatures, places abandoned by the stars themselves. Terraforming wasn't the goal. Camouflage was. Fleets weren't docked in planetary orbit. They were buried beneath moons, inside asteroids hidden in voids. Artificial intelligences were developed not to serve, but to outthink alien systems. Every human development was filtered through one goal: survive discovery, and if discovered, dominate immediately. Over time, Earth-born humans diverged. Generations raised in silence, in the cold shadows of space, became something else. Stronger bones, sharper minds, no sunlight, no green earth. They were still human, but they called themselves Terrans now. They were no flags, only purpose. No cultures remained, only memory and unity. From every continent, every language, every war, one thing endured: the instinct to adapt and overcome. They mastered gravitational weapons, field-hardened hulls, and fusion cores capable of sustaining flight for centuries. They didn't build fleets, they built ecosystems. Each Dreadnought was a city, a generator, a fortress, crewed by thousands, run by sentient AI, built for silence and violence. All the while they listened. Alien transmissions, council decrees, patrols and surveillance patterns. They learned without being noticed. Observed the structure of galactic empires. Noted their weaknesses, their habits, their pride. For the Terrans, time was the weapon, and they used it ruthlessly. By the time the council noticed the first wave of disturbances, the Terrans were already beyond preparation. They weren't coming to introduce themselves. They weren't coming to speak. They were already inside the borders, already moving. And for the first time in 3 centuries, they would speak again. Not as prey, not as primitives, but as the shadow the galaxy forgot to fear. The council's response was swift but misguided. They didn't know where to begin, only that the Terran threat was real, and it was coming for them. They sent their finest fleet, led by the Thalzar, to the outer rim where the disturbances originated. The fleet, composed of sleek, powerful ships, arrived at the designated sector, only to find the system dead quiet. No signs of life, no trace of anything unusual. The Thalzar were proud of their tactical superiority. They had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Their ships were faster, their weapons deadlier. This was just another anomaly to be swept aside. But as they moved deeper into the system, something felt wrong. The stars themselves seemed dimmer, colder, as if the universe was holding its breath. The ships, usually brimming with the confidence of conquest, now seemed fragile against the oppressive silence. It happened without warning. The first ship vanished. No explosion, no warning signal. Just gone. A hulking dreadnought, a symbol of the Thalzar's might, blinked out of existence. No one could explain how. They didn't even have time to react before the next ship was lost. And then the third. Panic spread like wildfire as the remaining ships scrambled to regroup, but it was already too late. The Terrans were upon them. The Thalzar fleet was caught in a trap they couldn't escape. Terran dreadnoughts, vast and silent, emerged from the blackness like shadowy titans. The Thalzar fleet was no match for them. Their weapons bounced off Terran shields as if they were mere toys. The Terrans fired back with surgical precision, cutting through the alien defenses like paper. Each shot, each calculated move, demonstrated a level of warfare the Thalzar had never seen. Fluid, brutal, and unrelenting. Commander Valnok, the leader of the Thalzar fleet, watched in disbelief as his once proud ships were dismantled piece by piece. The Terrans didn't just attack. They tortured, wearing down the morale of the Thalzar fleet, forcing them into submission before they even knew what hit them. The Terran strategy wasn't about destroying the enemy. It was about making the destruction an inevitable, painful experience. One by one, Thalzar ships were disabled, their energy cores siphoned, their engines disabled. The Dreadnoughts moved through the fleet with terrifying grace, taking down ship after ship as if it was nothing more than a demonstration. No shields could protect the Thalzar from the weapons humanity had crafted in silence. No countermeasures could stop the relentless barrage of human ingenuity. Then, the transmission came. A single Terran ship, the flagship, broadcasted across the Thalzar communications channel. The voice that came through was cold, devoid of emotion, yet carried an undeniable authority. You declared us extinct. Now, we correct your record. It wasn't a declaration of war. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the quiet precision of a people who had long ago learned the art of war without noise. The Terrans weren't fighting to conquer. They were fighting to correct the galaxy's assumptions, to remind the Council that humanity was never truly gone. Commander Valnok, now trembling in the command center of the last surviving ship, realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just an attack. This was an awakening. The Terrans had been watching, waiting, building a force far beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. The Thalzar were nothing more than the first to feel the fury of a civilization that had been underestimated for far too long. As the last ship of the Thalzar fleet was reduced to rubble, Commander Valnok could only reflect on the chilling truth that the galaxy's understanding of power had just been shattered. The Terrans had arrived, and they weren't leaving until every being in the galaxy knew their name. The galaxy erupted into chaos. Word of the Terran fleet's devastating assault spread like wildfire, igniting fear across every corner of the known universe. The Council, once the undisputed rulers of the stars, were scrambling to contain the panic. No species was spared from the ripple effect. The once feared Thalzar, shattered and broken, had sent their last warning. Earth was no longer the quiet blue world they had long since forgotten. It was a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would soon know its wrath. Humanity's message, transmitted across every communication channel, was simple but clear. We watched you. We remembered. We prepared. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to prevent what you did to others. The words echoed throughout the galaxy, reverberating in every corner, reaching both the most powerful empires and the weakest of colonies. There was no mistaking the intent. The Terrans weren't interested in diplomatic talks, nor were they here for revenge. They had come to correct the mistakes of the past, to reclaim their place in the stars, and to ensure that the galaxy would never forget the name Earth. The Council, once proud and infallible, was now in disarray. They had always prided themselves on their ability to pacify and dominate other species, but they had never considered the possibility of facing an adversary like the Terrans. Their political structure, long a bastion of cooperation, now began to crack. Factions formed, alliances shifted, and every species within the Council began to question their security. The fear was palpable. For the first time in centuries, the Council's rule was truly under threat. And yet, humanity's motives were not fueled by a desire for power. The Terrans didn't seek to conquer. They didn't need to. What they wanted, what they had always wanted, was peace, but peace on their own terms. They weren't interested in the hierarchical, exploitative systems that the Council upheld. They had been watching from the shadows, quietly observing the rise and fall of empires, and they had seen enough. Earth's message was not a call to arms, but a declaration of self-preservation. As the Terran fleet continued its quiet march through the galaxy, it left behind a trail of broken systems, dismantled surveillance grids, and a scattered Council scrambling to reassert its dominance. But every attempt was futile. The Terrans were everywhere and nowhere. They moved unseen, slipping through cracks in the galaxy's defenses like shadows. Every world they encountered was altered, not through destruction, but through liberation. They freed the enslaved, disabled the exploitative systems, and dismantled the surveillance networks that the Council had so carefully built over millennia. The Terrans had no need for formal diplomacy. Their ships spoke for them, silent, imposing, and unstoppable. They didn't conquer worlds. They freed them, dismantling the very systems that had once oppressed them. Every Terran dreadnought bore the mark of Earth, a symbol of both their victory and their history. It was a reminder to the galaxy that Earth was no longer the backwater world it had been deemed to be. They were no longer the forgotten, the ignored, the insignificant. Instead, humanity was the reckoning. The Terran fleet, with its ships like black titans, moved through the galaxy as silent judges. Their actions spoke louder than any weapon ever could. As they passed through star systems, they left a new order in their wake, one where the balance of power was no longer held by the corrupt, the exploitative, or the arrogant. Earth's memory was alive, and it had returned with a vengeance. And as the final transmission echoed through the stars, one chilling message remained. We are Earth. We are here, and we will never be forgotten. The galaxy now had a new understanding of what it meant to be human, and it would never forget the Terrans, because to forget them would mean to forget the very nature of survival, adaptation, and the fury of a people who had been underestimated for too long. The universe had learned a hard lesson. Earth was never alone. Earth was never forgotten. And now, the galaxy would remember.